Okay. And let's see my screen. Okay, I'm just balancing a few things right now. So this is being recorded. Thanks so much for joining this morning for our first stakeholder technical advisory committee meeting of 2022. I think we'll be able to get 3 in this year, so I'm excited for that. And thank you to our internal project team, Jim Silliman, who's the county engineer, and the MS4 coordinator with Oldham County, Derek Shade, who's a staff engineer with Oldham County, as well as Nia Rivers. Nia is a little bit newer to our team here, and I'm really happy that now I have 2 support staff from the Division of Water helping with this work. So Nia is my technical advisor. And then thankfully, we still have Perry Thomas as our Salt River Basin coordinator. So thank you all. And just a reminder that this work is paid for by a federal grant from the EPA to Oldham County Fiscal Court. Basic Zoom reminders, just please just make sure to mute yourself unless you're speaking. You can use the chat box for questions and conversations. And as I said, the meeting is being recorded. So bringing up that MIRO account again, I'll add that to the chat one more time here. So if you're just joining, you wouldn't have seen that in the chat yet. So you can click on that link and create a free account. Should be just a couple steps there, and then there'll be a board for you to open, and we'll get to that in just a second. And while you're doing that, I will just give a brief overview of our agenda for today. So we're going to do welcome and group introductions. And then I'm going to spend a little bit of time going over our current grants and our projects and programs for this spring 2022. Then I'm glad we have Dr. Bob Hawley here with Sustainable Streams. Bob's going to talk about a topic that's new to me and also of great interest. So I think you'll enjoy this as well. He's going to talk about mitigation banking. And then that will help us talk about our current stream priorities. So I'm going to use that MIRO board to talk about our current stream priorities and hopefully get a little feedback from you all. And then we'll wrap up with any questions and discussion you all might have. So our stakeholder meeting, our stakeholders, they're those people, you all, that live, work, and play in the Currys Fork Watershed. I've expanded this from what was historically our technical advisory committee meeting or our TAC to stakeholders because I advertise these, I promote these to the public. So I want this to be an accessible space for people who maybe aren't directly working in some of these positions, but are interested. And so that's why it's our stakeholder meeting. But our technical advisory committee is really that subset of professionals working in this space, the leaders of organizations that are directly involved with and responsible for managing our local waterways. So you all are essential to provide expertise, knowledge, guidance, and leadership with implementing our watershed plan and the solutions that that plan has identified. An example of a TAC member would be the Oldham County Health Department, and they are responsible for septic system compliance. And as you all know, when septic systems aren't in compliance, that increases the bacteria that ends up in our streams. So what is our goal? Simply, or not so much, protect and improve the waterways in the Currys Fork Watershed. So thank you all for being here again. Okay. Now we're going to get back to this MIRO board here. So again, if this is not accessible to you, you're in the field, as I know at least one person was, or this just isn't working, feel free to let us know it's not working for you. But otherwise, if needed, you can put your name in the chat because we do get matched from your time here today. So grab a sticky note in here, and there's a couple examples so far. So just your name, your title and organization, and then if your position is federally funded, just put like an FED or federal next to that. And so I know I will not count your time here as matched, although your time here is still very valuable. And this
Becca,
is just,
can you reiterate how to open that board? I might have missed that.
Oh, sure. So I'll put the link, click on the link in the chat, and then that's going to take you to MIRO, and you'll just have to create a free account. Should be just a couple steps. And then that's going to bring you to this board, this page here that has a board, and it says open this board.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is a fun way to know who's here, but it also gets us in this online space together that will help us later here in the meeting.
Do I select duplicate or share for it?
Are you on here? Can you see my screen?
Well, not in MIRO.
Did you click on the link? Sorry, I'm having trouble knowing where you're at.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Here, Derek's popping in. He's going to show me the ropes.
Okay.
Sorry. Thanks.
And I know technology is challenging, so I might be throwing a little bit of a wrench at you, but this is kind of a cool platform that I'm just learning as well. And we'll see how it goes. Next time we'll be in person, and maybe that'll be a little easier. But again, if this isn't working for you, sorry about that, but just put your name in the chat. And yeah, I'm not sure why it would be working for some and not others. So we'll do our best here. I know it looks like some people are in, some people aren't. Maybe the county, something with the county computers too.
I don't know what in the heck, if I left it.
Becca, so Derek pointed me in the right direction, and it looks like in the chat some other folks might need this too. I was clicking on the upper left. It says open this board. That's the wrong place. We have to go to where it's got, I guess, like the participant, I'll call it bubbles or avatars on the upper right, and select Becca's name. And then it popped up with all your sticky notes.
Oh, well, thank you for that, because I hadn't seen it on your end how that works. Is that helpful to other people? No? So are you seeing, we'll try this one more time. Are you seeing what's on my shared screen right now?
My shared screen? Not necessarily. I mean, what I see is the board with the sticky notes. Like that, yes.
This is what you see?
Yes.
Okay, that's good.
Okay.
Let's see. So I know Jim's in now. And Paul said, I can't get to the MIRO board because your screen is covering it. Okay. Well, again, if you can't get in this, sorry, just trying something new, but just put your name in the chat, and I'm glad you're here. I think most people here have been. I'm just looking at who's here. And this is just kind of a way for us to get to know each other a little bit more, who's here, because especially, you know, with COVID times, we don't see each other a whole lot as much. So just a way to see who's here. So thanks for joining. And I think I know everybody at this point, and everybody's been to one of these meetings, but feel free to put your name in the chat, tell us who you are, and have conversations there as well. But I will be using this to help with our match and track you all. Okay. So I'm going to move on and we'll get back to this later. So maybe we can work out between now and later how to get into this, and I can better understand what this looks like on your end. Okay. I'm going to move on here and let's see. Setting a timer. Okay, so just a reminder of our watersheds. I think we all know this now, but always good to point out and get us all in the same headspace with watersheds. So for Currys Fork Watershed, we're focused on this area of land that is considered a watershed. So a watershed is an area of land that when it rains, and in Oldham County, we're really just talking about rain. When it rains, all that water that falls in that land ends up in the same streams. So if you look at this map here, you see this outline in blue for the Currys Fork Watershed. So all the water that lands on that space, on that land, ends up outletting to the corner part here that's connected to the Oldham County boundary, and that goes into Floyd's Fork. So when we talk about watersheds, we talk about them on different scales. So kind of based on what our focus is. So a good analogy I like to use with that is you might tell people you live in LaGrange, you might tell people you live in Oldham County, and you might tell people you live in Kentucky. And those are all true, but it just depends on the context of the conversation, which one of those locations you might use. So we're always in a watershed, and for Currys Fork, because we're focused on water quality improvements, we want to get down to a closer look, and we focus on sub-watersheds. So I'm going to be talking about North Fork, Currys Fork, South Fork, Currys Fork, Asher's Run, and then our Currys Fork main stem. I'm going to give a high-level grants overview. So these meetings, these stakeholder meetings, they really build on each other. So if I talk too fast or I say something that doesn't make sense, I'm going to give a little more context to a lot of this as we go, but just know that these meetings do build on each other. So to find that right balance of how much information we give, it might just result in some things being a little bit unclear, but we can talk about that later or reach out to me another time, and I'll be happy to give you all the details you want and more. We have two grants through Oldham County Fiscal Court right now. These are our Kentucky Division of Water grants. And I'll just ask if you're not muted, just make sure you check and make sure you mute yourself real quick. So we have two grants with the Kentucky Division of Water. These are our non-point source implementation grant programs, the grants that have been funding this work for over 15 years now. So we have one that's federal fiscal year 2019 and federal fiscal year 2020. Takeaway there is we have two grants that we're managing. We've also applied for another grant, and we don't know yet if we got it. I've heard some good feedback, but that's all I know so far. And then we have this third grant that is really exciting to be a partner organization with another organization. So Oldham County Public Library applied to this Plant Wildflowers initiative grant, and I'm able to help them because we have a lot of crossover with what we're doing, and it's just been super nice to work with another organization with some of these efforts. So I've got tables here that kind of go over a little bit of the nitty-gritty of each of these grants. Again, I'm going to kind of give a high-level overview of this. So our 2019 grant, we've got 5 main initiatives in this grant. The first one being our on-site wastewater cost share program. We've completely spent all the money in this initiative within the 2019 grant. We fixed 6 septic systems. We're also focused on rain gardens. So we planted a rain garden at UDEL in 2020. We held a workshop in June 2021. And thanks to Russ Turpin, who was on the call today too, we have some extra funding because Russ was really great and provided us that workshop at no charge. So we got the match from it, and we have some extra funding to do some more work. So we've got a little bit of funding to put towards some rain garden signs at both the UDEL rain garden and then the New Springs Park rain gardens that are going to be installed later this year, I believe, in LaGrange. And then we're going to have a little bit of funding to support cost share for a new rain garden that I'm hoping will be at a commercial space. And I don't have any prospects right now. So if you know of anybody, would be a good place to a good spot for a commercial rain garden, let me know. We're also focused on riparian habitat. I'm going to talk about this a lot too. I'm going to repeat myself a lot here today. So we had a workshop both in October 2020 and March 2021. We've had several plantings through these workshops, in-person trainings. We've gotten out near our streams and planted and also harvested live stakes. And then we've had a giveaway, and I just wrapped up another giveaway request. So we'll be doing more live stakes giveaways here later this spring. We've got about $7,500 still available for riparian habitat. And then rain barrels. So we had a workshop, we had 2 workshops last year focused on rain barrels. We've installed 24, and we have about $1,000 left for this cost share program, where thanks to Oldham MS4, anybody in Oldham County can install a rain barrel and go to me to submit their request for reimbursement, and they can get up to $50 back off of the cost of the rain barrel that they paid for. And we're allowing up to 2 installations. So if you do 2 rain barrels and diverters, you can get up to $100 back. And that's a really nice incentive for these projects. And then we're always focused on public engagement. So we've got our local watershed group, Friends of Currys Fork. We've got our pollinator garden group that was started last year, just focused more on the native plants and pollinators. And then we are having a watershed watch workshop this Sunday. There's still room if anybody's interested. But we're trying to expand citizen science, water quality monitoring here in Currys Fork. So we've got funding for 5 kits, and we'll see how many people we get at this training and go from there. And then the last piece of this grant is looking at a website, and that'll be something we plan out a little bit more later this year. Okay. Our second grant that we have right now does have quite a bit of overlap of the first. So this is our 2020 grant. We've got funding also for our on-site wastewater cost share program. So we just combined both pools of money into one for this program. We've completed 9 systems, and we have 7 systems in progress. Again, the riparian habitat. So we've got about $35,000. We really want to focus on improving our stream buffers with this. So we've got a couple of things planned, and then a couple of things down the road a little bit we're going to talk about. So live stakes are just so helpful when we're trying to plant and improve our stream buffers. I've been buying them and also harvesting them, but we don't have a lot of space to harvest. So I got approval from LaGrange Public, their Parks Committee, to be able to plant live stakes along a site along L&N Lake. That's near Wilbourn Park, if you don't know where that is in LaGrange. And so we're going to plant some larger trees and some live stakes, and hopefully be able to, within a year or 2, start harvesting them for free for anybody who is interested. We have this FEMA buyout property, and I know Becky's on today and can probably explain this a lot better than I can, but the county through FEMA dollars purchased a property that's actually right along North Fort Currys Fork, and is a high priority site for us. So they bought the property, tore down the house, and now we're looking at installing, creating a wetland to add a little bit more capacity to the stormwater before it gets to the stream. So we're working on that now. And then also going to launch a cost share program with all this funding here later this spring. The new piece that we brought in here is really stream restoration. So part of this grant is to try to pursue some additional federal dollars for mitigation. And a main way we can do that is through the Kentucky Fish and Wildlife Resources in lieu fee program. So that's the program that when development happens and streams are destroyed, you basically pay money to destroy the streams. I'm being a little blunt here to explain it more efficiently, but then that money goes into a pool, and it'd be wonderful to get that money back to Oldham, but we did find out they don't need a project in Oldham right now. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more. But we do have a workshop planned in April where Sustainable Streams is going to come out and talk about the concept designs that were completed in 2019, and then talk about these options of stream restoration, riparian habitat, and some next steps. We have this grant that, again, waiting to see if it's funded, and this grant is focused on detention basins, so retrofits, education, and creating new detention basins using this critical discharge flow rate for Currys Fork. And I'm going to talk more about that later again. The other parts of this grant include increasing community-driven projects. So we talked about nature-based solutions at our last stakeholder meeting. We want to have a cost share program with nature-based solutions. So we requested a little bit of money for that. We're also focused again on community engagement. So working with Leaders Don't Litter to expand litter pickups along waterways. We have a pond and lake management workshop planned in July and continuing to support our local watershed groups. We're also adding in this other initiative, which I'm really excited about, focused on equity, outreach, and education. So we want to hire somebody who has experience in reaching underserved communities to come in and provide us a little bit of education and support there. And just briefly, this other grant with the library. So we have an event tonight, the Plant Wildflowers Kickoff event. If you haven't heard about it, I hope you can join if you're available, but it's going to be a really nice event of getting a lot of community partners together and the public to really talk about wildflowers and plants and promote that. And then we've got a pollinator garden planting. We'll do some community education through a bio blitz later this summer. And we've got wildflower seeds to give away. I'm going to take a breath there and just check my time here. So I'm going to just, I'm going to take a little, if you're following the agenda, I'm going to take a little bit more time on the front end of this to kind of prep us for the second section later on that I've got after Bob speaks. So I know I'm going to take a little bit longer here. And I'm not going to be able to talk about everything, of course. So I'm going to talk about septic systems and then kind of get into all of our stream work. So septic systems, we always talk about this. It's such a great program. Again, it's our 50-50 cost share up to $7,000. We have funding for 22 systems and all those funds have been earmarked and 15 of those systems have been completed. And then kind of trying to combine initiatives here, which just is, common sense, I guess, at this point. So these new septic sites, it's fresh soil, right? So I reached out to everybody who was part of the septic system program and offered native pollinator seed to those that were interested. So we did have a few interested. One of them has been planted so far. You can see in that picture here. So last fall, I met the landowner. We scattered some seed, put down some straw, and we'll be excited to see what that looks like starting this year. So stream specific BMP. So now is kind of the time. If I sent out that packet, that PDF of information, there's a bunch of maps that's going to connect to what I'm talking about here. And there's a lot of moving pieces. It's going to be kind of dry. I don't have a lot of graphics because there's a lot of information. I want to be as clear as possible. So in our watershed plan, the Currys Fork Watershed Plan, there are 13 stream-specific best management practices. So an example of that would be BMP 18, which is the confluence of North Fork and South Fork. And the BMP for that says complete a stream restoration project on the downstream section of the main stem of Currys Fork near the confluence. So best management practice to help restore this area would be to complete a stream restoration project. That's an example. So in addition to those 13 watershed plan BMPs, there's also 3 BMPs that we've added just based on work that has happened or work that is planned. And those are kind of unofficial BMPs. We're going to do a little bit of overview on this. So 2 distinctions again. I'm talking about stream restoration. I'm talking about riparian habitat improvement. The main thing to understand, stream restoration, when I say that, I'm talking about kind of a large scale project going in, regrading the stream, likely involves easements, and is just going to be a bigger long-term project. The riparian habitat improvement, when we talk about that, talking about the stream side plantings, riparian buffers, and that is going to be a little bit easier with our workshops, giveaways, and then this cost share program that we're going to launch later this year. So this map on this slide, I basically took both the stream restoration priorities, the habitat improvement priorities, and put them on the same map. I realize now that those colors might not be that great, but if I go to this next slide here, it's basically taking these 2 maps, which were a little bit more cumbersome, and trying to put them together to see that a little bit more clear. So these maps I've shown a lot. I've shown at most of our stakeholder meetings. So these maps of our stream restoration priorities and our habitat priorities. Okay. So in our current initiatives, as I've mentioned, we have these 2 Division of Water grants, and both of them have specific initiatives to focus on the riparian habitat. Now in this in the second grant, our 2020 grant, we also have added that stream restoration piece, which is a bit more complicated. Can we try to pursue these bigger dollars, these bigger long-term projects? It's a balancing act because we really want to avoid, and this was something that was really ingrained to me by Corrine, who was my technical advisor when I came in, who was wonderful, really ingrained to me. We want to avoid planting trees where we think there's going to be a future stream restoration project. So it's a balancing act, but we also want to try to not just be halted by the idea that someday down the road a project might occur. So we're trying to balance those pieces now in these current grants. And then really a takeaway is improving streams from multiple angles. So I've got 3 kind of main categories on breaking up the current work that we're doing, the current stream specific work. So again, stream restoration is 1, riparian habitat improvements is 2, and then this 3rd piece is the detention basins, designs, and retrofits with that Currys Fork critical discharge assessment. Okay, so those 3 pieces. And then a little bit of history and background here to get us caught up. So in 2019, we had that assessment, stream assessment and concept designs developed by Sustainable Streams for a few of our high priority stream sites, BMP 18, 19, 30, 58. And then we also added the Lakewood Valley wastewater treatment plant that wasn't existing in the watershed plan as an issue. Results of that are really those 2 things we're talking about: pursuing the full-scale stream restoration or revegetating the stream with live stakes. Those are kind of our two crossroads that we're working on. And then in 2020, we have this assessment completed to determine the suitable flow rate for water released from detention basins without eroding the streams. So I always say I'm not an engineer, and so an engineer can explain this better. But basically that flow that's coming out of our detention basins, it's currently built to a 2-year storm flow rate. But based on this assessment specific to Currys Fork, Sustainable Streams figured out that we really need to get 40 to 50% of that 2-year storm flow rate to avoid eroding our streams, to avoid material moving in both our stream beds and our stream banks. And just a reminder, sediment is our #1 pollutant in Kentucky, so this really connects very well to this work. In 2020, we also started the live stakes workshops and giveaways. And in 2022, we're trying to kind of do a little bit of everything. So pursuing this funding from Division of Water for a critical discharge basin demonstration project. We are kind of going to determine options for stream restoration, partially through the stream management and restoration workshop, bringing the property owners to the table who had their streams assessed with those concept designs, assess their interest in mitigation, doing live stake planting. So again, workshops, giveaways, that future live stakes nursery, and then a riparian habitat cost share program, which will launch in May, which will be eligible to all Currys Fork residents. And it's going to be a ranking process based on highest priority, which I'm hoping to have your input to determine where we're on the right track and those rankings make sense. Quick recap. So what do we have? We have the 2019 concept designs for some select stream areas. We have the 2020 critical discharge assessment, that Q critical. We currently have funding to pursue mitigation projects, not funding.
Cassidy.
You there. We have funding to pursue mitigation projects. We have funding for riparian workshops, giveaways, and cost share. And we are awaiting funding for the Q critical demonstration project. Okay. I am actually pretty much on time, which is very surprising to me. So I know I went through that very quickly. That was kind of a primer to prep us for later. I'm going to ask that you hold your questions. I know there might be some uncertainties going on, but you can either hold your questions or you can put them in the chat and I'll look at those while Bob is speaking, and that might help me on some points that I can clarify better when we move forward. Okay. Then take a breath here. So with that, I'm really happy Sustainable Streams has been interwoven into all of this, and I can't imagine doing this work without great contractors like Bob Hawley and like Sustainable Streams. So it's wonderful that that Bob, I know everyone is so busy. I'm thankful that he's been able to set aside some time here today and will continue to help us later in April and moving forward. So for those that don't know Bob, Dr. Bob Hawley, he's the principal scientist and owner of Sustainable Streams. They're based out of Louisville. And they specialize in stream restoration and stormwater management with over 120 miles of stream restoration experience. He's been working with the Currys Fork Watershed Plan since its inception in the early 2000s, when he served as the primary author on the original grant application for the Watershed Plan. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to hand it over to Bob. Bob, you should be able to share your screen, but let me know if I can do anything.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Let's get this shared. All right. And are you all seeing one screen or two?
Two.
Okay.
Like going to the eye doctor.
Now you're seeing one?
Yeah, looks great.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you, Becca. Thank you, everybody. That was a really good overview. And I think this ties in really well with that, and it will set up for some good questions, I imagine. So, yeah, so Becca asked me to give a kind of an overview on stream mitigation, and it sort of ties into, you know, what was in the watershed plan was, let's work with Kentucky Fish and Wildlife on potentially doing some big projects. And this is an example of a big stream mitigation project we did. I think this is over a mile of stream restoration, recently completed in Owen County with the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife through their in lieu fee stream mitigation program. And so we were thinking, well, maybe we can do some of that in the Currys Fork Watershed, and that was kind of what the previous efforts have been kind of setting ourselves up for, seeing if that was feasible. So I'm going to dive into what stream mitigation is. But first, I'm going to remind everybody what stream restoration is, and that's what Becca started off with. So as Becca noted, in the watershed plan, there's a lot of sections of Currys Fork that kind of need stream restoration. And stream restoration is really, it's a pretty big umbrella term. It's really any activity that aims to improve the environmental health or habitat of a stream. And so it could be bank stabilization like this project, where, you know, there's basically a road at risk of falling into a large stream. And, you know, instead of letting the road fall into the stream, we, you know, regrade the bank, stabilize the bank, you know, and protect the stream habitat along the way. But it can include habitat, the addition of habitat structures or full-scale channel reconfiguration, like remeandering a channelized stream, removing dams or culverts. It can even include hydrologic restoration, like the detention basin retrofits, like Becca mentioned, or bank-full wetlands that allow the stream to offload water into the floodplain, like she mentioned on the FEMA buyout property, and then even riparian reforestation, like things like live stake programs or just kind of buffer zones to let the forest come back along the stream. So stream restoration is a pretty big umbrella term. And some example stream restoration projects in Oldham County. Again, there's a lot of stream restoration needs in the Currys Fork Watershed. So here's a project that we did with Kentucky Division Water 319 funding. These are before pictures and then after pictures or during construction pictures. So the stream was really close to Moody Lane and kind of a safety hazard. You know, if a car kind of slipped off the road, they could easily flip their car into the creek. And so not only a habitat and water quality problem, but a safety issue. And so this is This is before, and then, during construction, was making that bank a lot more gentle, kind of shifting the stream away from the road. And then that's what it looks like during construction. And after we, get all this revegetated with native vegetation. So some example pictures, kind of before and after. See, the banks are much more gentle, right? Another, kind of 5-foot vertical bank before, and then, really nice, gentle, like 4-to-1 slope with some trees that we could save in the process. And then, getting this fabric down for the native seed to come back. This one, I'm sure you remember if you've been a part of this project, TAC for very long, but this was the tire bank over on Ballard Court. The tire bank that was failing and, loading sediment into the stream, and also tires. And EcoGrow and Ridgewater did a really nice job of constructing this bank and preserving most of these trees and getting it reseeded and live staked, and then got what's called boulder toe along the toe of the bank to protect it from eroding in the future. They did a really good job on that, and that's who Russ Turpin works for. So hats off to him and his team. And here's some kind of before and after pictures on that Ballard Court project. And just kind of a reminder, this was a relatively short section of stream restoration that was funded by Division of Water 319. I want to say the total budget was probably less than, or on the order of about $100,000. But these were pretty bad banks. And so it was, seen as a priority to get these addressed. And so just kind of some more after pictures here. And then we also did some a newer technique where we put some, we call it hand placed log structures, where we had some bad banks in a forested section of a tributary, and we didn't really have the budget to do any major earthwork and regrading. So we added a lot of logs by hand. We got them kind of anchored in between the exposed roots and got them ramped up behind these live trees. We also got this old tire out of there. And, we did all that on a very limited budget, sort of before you see the undercut banks and the exposed root. And then after, we get all those logs kind of ramped up through those roots so that they don't float away. And then, that allows, sediment to start depositing at the toe of the bank, so it's no longer eroding, and then that sediment stays stable long enough for vegetation to recolonize it. And all this is much lower cost approach to stream restoration, but can be appropriate on smaller streams. And so you see, again, just getting the energy off the energy of the stream used to be slamming into this bank. Now all these logs are sort of deflecting flow out into the center of the stream and allowing that bank to get revegetated. You see a bar being built right here, and then, in future years, that bar can get colonized by vegetation. So, and this process is low cost. It's not 100% foolproof. You can't have logs that float away, but it's extremely low cost, and you preserve all these trees and you preserve the canopy shade and things like that. But anyway, just a couple examples of 319 funded stream restoration in Oldham County. Now moving over to stream mitigation. Stream mitigation is a form of stream restoration, but it's a highly regulated way to do it. And the projects are usually much bigger and much more expansive. And the whole purpose of stream mitigation is basically to offset the ecological losses that occur in streams due to regulated impacts such as road construction, development, any activity that basically impacts an existing stream. So, if you're building a road, you probably have to cross a lot of streams, and you're putting a lot of streams into culverts or, under bridges. That's perceived as an impact. If you're doing development, often you're sort of trying to protect some streams, but in other places you don't have room to protect the stream, and so the developer might bury a stream in a pipe, for example, so they can have more area to build on. And so all of those things get permitted, but at the end of the day, as a part of that permit, they basically have to pay into a fund that that is then used to offset those impacts. And so here's an example of a stream mitigation project. So the before picture, and then this entire valley, you know, like I said, over about a mile of stream got totally reconfigured. You know, these banks used to be 4 feet tall and eroding a lot of sediment in the stream. Now these banks are, you know, about a foot tall. Floodplains really accessible. Nice native wetland vegetation in this kind of really wet riparian corridor. That's an example of a stream mitigation project. And so we were hoping to do we were evaluating whether we could do that, projects like that in Oldham County on Currys Fork on some of these larger properties. And so, but kind of before we get into there have been stream mitigation projects in Oldham County already. And so just some examples. So this is the South Fork of Currys Fork stream mitigation project that was conducted through the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife inland feed program, the stream mitigation program. And this one was designed by the University of Louisville Stream Institute, Dr. Art Parola and his team. And these are pictures from Becca. And you can see this is probably right at the boundary of the project. So because you can see this has a sort of a mowed yard with a pretty narrow riparian zone. And then looking this direction, you see lots of livestock, tree growth, and lots of native vegetation in the floodplain. And the stream is much narrower and the banks are nice and gentle. And here's what that looks like in winter. When the leaves are down, you see kind of looks pretty messy back here. Lots of wild and woolly native vegetation, a narrow channel, and really lots of good root strength on the bank from these live stakes that have turned into trees. And here's some other pictures of that area. Again, Mike Crosdale and Art Parola would call this, you know, messy because, you know, they argue that, you know, all streams in Kentucky used to be really messy with beaver meadows and, you know, really shallow floodplains and streams that kind of went all over the place. And that's what that stream mitigation project looks like. You see a house in the background, but that house is well off of the stream. And this entire area is protected by a conservation easement so that, you know, no one can mow it and the stream can do its thing. And you know, it's kind of protected forever from further impacts. Just a few other pictures of that project. Again, you see lots of dense tree growth along the banks and very obvious evidence of flows getting into the floodplain, this really shallow floodplain that was restored as part of the stream project. And the idea is, you know, by spreading the water out into a nice, accessible floodplain that's got good native vegetation, you know, you're dissipating that energy, and you know, that's really healthy for the stream. You're also dissipating the water that can be polluted with stormwater runoff. You're dissipating that into those vegetated surfaces where those pollutants can settle out, and they can also be assimilated through bacteria and plant uptake. And so it's kind of a win for water quality, win for stream habitat, and it looks a lot more like streams used to look like before you know, Europeans kind of settled the continent and got rid of the beaver and deforested all the hill slopes and so forth. So again, more pictures. You know, stream restoration and stream mitigation typically use a lot of wood in the stream. So here's kind of one that's lateral. Here's one that's sort of buried down in the bed. And here's another kind of representative picture. So stream mitigation projects, some people think they look messy, some people think they look beautiful, but the idea is they're in conservation forever. And so there's no cutting down the trees, there's no mowing. The only thing you can really do is keep the invasive plants out of that 50-foot riparian buffer. And so they look pretty wild and woolly, but it is, again, the goal of providing habitat today and providing habitat forever in terms of stream habitat. Another example in Oldham County is the Oldham Reserve. These are a couple of their master plans. So the big development project over by, this is, I believe, Moody Lane down here, and 71 up here, and I forget the name of this road, but you probably know where the Oldham Reserve is. And some of these streams were impacted by the project, and some of the streams were restored by the project. And so here's some streams that, you know, with the road going in here, all these stream crossings get impacted. Some of these other stream crossings get impacted, but then this stream over here got restored, right, as a part of the project. And here's some pictures. I know Becca gave a tour out there. I think Kirsten might be on the call, and I think Red Wing did the design on this. And you see, you know, nice remeandered stream with some boulder structures and native vegetation getting established on the banks. Nice, low, gentle banks. Again, you know, low, gentle banks. Trees getting reestablished in the floodplain. And, you know, this is, I think, probably just like 1 year after construction. But another really important point here, you know, a lot of times these mitigation projects will have signage like this to remind folks that this is all protected by conservation and there's no mowing within 50 feet of the top of bank. And that is a non-negotiable requirement for stream mitigation projects, because the point is, you know, these stream mitigation projects, they take a lot of effort, a lot of money, and you know, the Army Corps does not want to see these projects impacted after they're all said and done. They want them to be protected forever, to be functioning habitats for forever. Those were some examples in Oldham County, and now I'm going to move into, well, how does stream mitigation even work? Right. I know it's kind of a version of stream restoration. You're saying you're doing big projects. What are the different options? Okay. So again, a kind of an aerial of a stream mitigation project that was conducted with the Kentucky Inland Feed Program. You know, big projects, a lot of length. And, you know, this one is on a Kentucky wildlife management area. So very easy to kind of protect these riparian corridors forever from development, because it's already in a wildlife management area that's just reserved for hunting and fishing. And so, you know, you see a lot of projects in settings like this that are, you know, for stream mitigation. So in general, how it works is, you know, you have a roadway project or a development project where, you know, you can kind of see this is sort of a low point. Here's a kind of another low point. You imagine that this used to have a stream that was probably impacted. This might have been a stream along here that was impacted. Any impacts to streams, basically, that are unavoidable for the project, get they basically, if you cause a loss to a stream, that loss must be compensated for. And stream mitigation is the avenue that happens. And so there's several ways that this can happen, but in most cases, an impact happens. They buy stream mitigation credits from an entity like a mitigation bank or inland feed program, and then those dollars are used to do large restoration projects that again have those conservation easements that are permanently protect the restored habitat. And no matter what form it takes, all stream impacts and mitigation projects have to be approved by the Army Corps of Engineers. It's all sort of regulated through the Army Corps. And so there are three options for mitigation. There's what's called mitigation banks, and there's many mitigation banks in Kentucky. These are just two I grabbed off the web. I really have, I've got no skin in this game. It's just two example entities in Kentucky. Mitigation banks, they can be government agencies, they can be nonprofits, and there also can be for-profit entities. And the main thing with mitigation banks is that the majority of the credits, credit sales have to take place after the stream mitigation project has already been constructed. And you can't even sell all of the credits until not only has it been constructed, but it's all the way through its 5-year monitoring period and it's demonstrated as successful. And so basically the idea with the bank is you build the projects first, and then you're allowed to sell the credits that correspond to what you created. And the idea there is there's no loss in stream habitat over time, right? Like they're not allowed to do the impacting until the bank has already established good habitat. Okay, so that's because that takes money up front. You're allowed to be a for-profit entity and be a bank. The in lieu fee programs, there's 2 of which I know of in Kentucky. One is the Northern Kentucky University Center for Applied Ecology. The other is the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources. But in lieu fee programs, or FELO programs for short, they have to be either a government or a nonprofit entity. They cannot be a for-profit entity. So if you're a for-profit entity and you want to do stream mitigation, you have to do it through a mitigation bank or a permittee responsible. But the FELO programs, the big difference with them is they're allowed to sell the credits in advance of construction, because they're a nonprofit, they're a government agency. They need that money in advance to then have the money to then build the project, right? So that's how those are set up. But then because of that, there is a lag in time. So basically an impact can happen, and then maybe 3 years later, the mitigation project is constructed, and there's 3 years of time, or whatever the length is, where the America was missing out on those stream habitat feet, right? And so because of that loss in habitat over a short amount of time, or long, depending on your perspective, basically mitigation banks are kind of preferred, because from the Army Corps perspective, because you don't have that loss in time. The impacts really don't happen until the bank has already been constructed. Okay, so then the third way to do it is what's called permittee responsible. And I believe that's what the Oldham Reserve was. And that's the case where, you don't really want to do a bank that does multiple projects. You can't be a FELO program. You're just a big development that kind of wants to, you've got stream impacts, but you want to offset those impacts on your own property. And that's what happened, I believe, at Oldham Reserve, where, all those impacts were permitted. Then they built the mitigation project. And then after the mitigation project is constructed and monitored and it's all successful, then they can start impacting the other streams that need to be impacted for those road projects and development projects. So again, three basic ways mitigation can happen. As Becca mentioned, Kentucky Fish and Wildlife is the big FELO entity in Kentucky, and they used to be looking for projects, including projects in Oldham County, and they even built a project in Currys Fork. Now they've got such a backlog of projects lined up, and also their funding areas have kind of shifted and then not shifted. And anyway, it's a long story, but they are not currently looking for more projects in Oldham County or in the Currys Fork Watershed. That's kind of been a change since, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, when they were looking for projects. And so what's important to note is there's lots of private mitigation banks out there that are doing this work, but even Oldham County itself could decide to do its own mitigation bank if that's something they wanted to do, right? There are other, if you can't get a project through Kentucky Fish and Wildlife, it's not the end of the world. Like, there are other ways to get stream mitigation if stream mitigation is a good fit for your streams. Okay, so this is a really busy slide. I don't want you to really spend too much time on it, but basically I've been saying stream mitigation credits. I've been talking about that. And they're calculated. There's these things called AMUs, adjusted mitigation units. But a long story short, is roughly 1 foot of stream restored is roughly equivalent to about 1 credit, plus or minus. It varies based on what you're doing, whether you're doing preservation versus rehabilitation. You know, you get more credits for rehabilitation instead of, you know, preservation. It also varies based on, did you take a poor quality stream and make it excellent? Did you take an ephemeral stream and make it intermittent? You know, or did you just take a, you know, an average stream and make it excellent? So basically, how much lift you give the stream, the more lift you give it, the better, the more credits you get. But roughly thinking, just keeping it very, very simple, you know, about 1 foot of stream is worth about one credit. And, you know, for wetlands, it's about 1 acre of wetland is about 1 credit, thereabouts. I mean, again, it all is kind of tailored to each project. If anybody's really interested in the detail, there's a paper that is available online that has all of the details here that you could reference. Now it's important to note that stream mitigation is habitat focused. The primary goal of mitigation projects is to improve and permanently protect stream and riparian habitat. So, you know, it's not used for, stream mitigation dollars are not used for like a wastewater treatment plant upgrade or, you know, a septic system, you know, incentive program, right? It's a, you know, it's basically saying stream habitat was lost. We're going to use money that those developers and roadway projects pay into. We're going to use that money to restore a comparable amount of habitat that was lost, right? However, the Army Corps recognizes that, you know, to have true stream function, so to meet the whole goals of the Clean Water Act, so restore chemical, physical, and biological integrity of streams, you don't need just habitat, you also need good water quality, natural flow regime, and things like that. So projects are kind of expected to be located in watersheds with adequate water quality and a natural flow regime so that you can support biological integrity. And the Army Corps can reject a proposed project if they don't feel like it's got a very good chance of succeeding at really providing lift in the watershed, supporting biological recovery and things like that. It's habitat focused, but they want those other components of stream function like biological integrity, good water quality. Now, the good thing about Currys Fork is, and all the stuff that Becca was talking about, you know, you've got this watershed, comprehensive watershed plan that's got pathogen priority areas, and you've got your septic system, you know, program going in to help mitigate those water quality problems like pathogens, right? And then we know that the sediment load is primarily coming from stream bank erosion. And so, and then you've got areas in your watershed plan that prioritize certain reaches, right? So the good thing about a suburban watershed like Currys Fork is, with a watershed plan, you've got a better chance of getting your project approved because the Army Corps can kind of rest assured that you're taking other steps to address those water quality and non-point source issues. This is my last slide before we really get to questions, but a typical stream mitigation project takes a long time, and it's really important to underscore this. And so this is just like an arbitrary start date and just going on 5-year increments, just to kind of give people's a sense of the scale. But basically, if you've got a stream mitigation project that you want to pursue, typically the first thing you want to do, well, you want to start coordinating with your stakeholders and the partners, like the property owners and other stakeholders in the watershed and along the stream. And you do that throughout the whole project, right? But the very first kind of milestone you want to reach is basically a memorandum of understanding with the property owners that says, you know, we understand that this project is going to require a minimum 50-foot conservation easement from the top of the bank for this project to move forward, and we are on board with that. Okay, because without that, again, that's a non-negotiable requirement. Without that, there's no point to pay for a survey, to do any sort of design, try to get a mitigation plan approved, anything like that, without the property owners on board. So if they are on board, then there's the survey and data collection phase that might take 6 months to a year, depending on how big the project is. Then there's the preliminary design, preliminary easements, and the mitigation plan. All of that gets done. That might take about a year. Then you've got to execute the easements and get those memorialized. And then you get the mitigation plan approved by the Army Corps. And so once the Army Corps approves the mitigation plan, the easements are executed, then you go ahead and pay for your final design, get that done, go ahead and get it bid for construction. And you could do this as a design build too. You don't necessarily have to go design bid build, but this is just an example of a design bid build process. But after you get it bid, construction has to start when the leaves are off and the bats are out of this area, so that tree clearing can happen. So that always starts in the winter. And then, it takes, basically at least a year, because your trees you want to plant during the dormant season in the next winter. So at least a year. If it's a really big project, it might take 2 years. And then you've got to monitor it for 5 years minimum to make sure that the habitat you said you were going to restore, you actually restored, and it's functioning and it's not getting blown out by big events, and the vegetation's being established and invasives aren't taking it over. And then after that, you have to do long-term management forever. And that's basically things like making sure that people aren't encroaching on your easement, people aren't cutting down trees and mowing and things like that. And so it can be pretty simple, but there's got to be a guarantee that there's going to be long-term management on the site forever, and usually some reserve funding in place to make that happen. And so with that, I think, I don't know if Becca has time for questions now, but that's kind of the overview of stream mitigation. Lots of ins and outs, highly regulated. And again, the goal is that permanent protection of the restored stream forever through the conservation easement process.
We can take a couple questions. That's okay. I anticipate we're going to run long, so I think we'll be out of here by 11. But of course, if you have to head out sooner, by all means. So question in the chat. It appeared there were a lot of stream impacts due to the Oldham Reserve work. They seem to use the permittee option to do mitigation on one stream. Since they chose that option, they chose where to focus the mitigation efforts, question mark.
I think any questions about the Oldham Reserve, maybe Kirsten would be better to answer. I do believe it was a permittee responsible and project. And the main thing on a project like Oldham Reserve is, the amount of impacts that you're creating by your roads and your buildings and other things. Those are the quality of that stream, and the flow regime, the flow type of that stream is all factored in. You figure out how many credits you have to buy, or basically how many credits you are impacting, and then you have to offset those impacts by restoring at least that many comparable credits. And so these reaches that they restored basically provided enough lift to offset those impacts. That's how, I don't know specifically for Oldham Reserve, but like that's kind of the how permittee responsible projects are set up.
Yeah, and Kirsten, if you have anything to add to that, go ahead. I know the site is complicated, but.
No, that's pretty much it. Like Bob said, we had a certain amount of impacts when they put LaGrange Parkway in, and based on the quality of the streams and the type, we had to figure out how many, how many feet or credits of mitigation we needed. And luckily there was an area down in the southeast corner that we were able to use to, get enough credits down there to cover all of the impacts that we needed. So, and like Bob had mentioned, that whole area is set aside in a conservation easement. So, and it was a permittee responsible mitigation project. That is correct. Yep.
Awesome. And I guess the other thing to note is, there are some stream impacts and then there's some development, but when the development goes in, Oldham County requires stormwater BMPs to go in with it, right? So that even though the development is changing sort of flow patterns and things like that, the stormwater is getting routed to things like detention basins and rain gardens, so that these streams downstream of the development aren't getting hammered with really erosive, flashy flows.
And that connects really well to our additional focus on detention basins and trying to protect streams that way with stormwater as well. I don't see any other questions, so I'm gonna move on. That was wonderful, Bob. Thank you. That helped me a lot understand kind of those different, directions you'd go for mitigation, and obviously looking at your timetable. It's a long process and a big commitment. So it makes sense why we focus on, something like rain barrels or septic systems as opposed to putting all our eggs in the basket of mitigation. So we're spreading out our efforts here.
Absolutely. And on that point, Becca, I mean, it's basically not worth it to do a stream mitigation project unless you've got many thousand feet of stream, right? Because there's so much work that goes into the mitigation plan, getting all the easements together, all of that. It's not really cost feasible until you've got, at least 1,000+ feet. And so that's kind of why when we looked at those properties, the properties that, had 1,000+ feet, and there were just a few properties, oh, okay, well, if they were going to be agreeable to conservation easements, then stream mitigation might be an option for them. But yeah, it would be a long journey.
Right, I'm going to stop your screen and bring up mine here again. But hopefully this all is connecting, kind of starting to connect pretty well for you all with this workshop we're having in April. Bob's going to come in and talk to those stream owners that we had, those initial concept designs. He's going to talk to those stream owners and see, talk about mitigation and these challenges, and kind of just get an initial assessment of, do we even have the landowner interest? Because Currys Fork is so broken up by private property that we really don't have. I mean, I think the Oldham Reserve is the last space we have in Currys Fork that's intact and, to do something with. So it's much more challenging with all these broken up individual properties. But we want to have that conversation, have this conversation with the property owners before we just, throw it out the window as an idea. So I'm going to transition a little bit into the stream review process. So reminder of those 3 strategies: stream restoration, we should be all feel pretty good about this now, riparian work, and then the detention basin. So those 3 buckets of effort right now. So I'm using this meeting to do a big overview on where we are at with all our streams, with the direction we're trying to go, bringing all the pieces together, and also this validation process where getting you all together to review this. I mean, some of you, like Bob, were part of the initial planning of the watershed plan, and then I've, started in 2018. So we've got a big mix of experience, and it's kind of time to step back and say, how are we doing? Are we moving in the right direction before we really go forward? So once again, we have funding for 2 of our Division of Water grants to do stream work. We've committed to validating these priorities, and validating meaning, getting with you all, getting with our stakeholders, and confirming, are we on the right process? Are we missing anything? Are there things that we should be considering that maybe you all have information that we don't? And then again, lots of moving pieces. And so how are we going to do this? So I'd like to kind of go through the various stream specific BMPs, and just kind of, as I'm going through this, be thinking about, does this make sense to you? Is there anything missing or we should consider? And that's where we have the MIRO map. And I know this is not working for everybody. I'll put the link over here. Just once again, I apologize if it's not working, but feel free, as I'm going through this, you can unmute yourself, you can put information in the chat, and I'll get that, I'll have that captured as well. So we'll just make do. I appreciate everyone's patience. And you've got those maps in that PDF that kind of should help lay it all out. So I'm gonna stop my screen here and I'm gonna bring back up this MIRO map and hopefully you all can see that okay. So if you don't have this open, that's okay. In that PDF, there's a table. Organizing this is hard, I'm gonna be honest. So just doing my best, bear with me. We don't have a lot of time now, so please take a look at this after the meeting and let me know if something doesn't make sense to you or something you think of something. I really appreciate feedback, even if it's not today. So we have these stream BMPs. I've organized this table by sub watershed and attempted to color code this just so you have a sense of the priority type. So stream restoration is highlighted in blue. Our habitat is highlighted in purple, and then the pink is really both because there are some overlaps in those maps, and we want to make sure we capture that because this was all put together when the watershed plan was created, so we don't want to lose those details. And I'll go back over here. And this all, if you've seen the watershed plan, if you've seen the BMPs, that list of BMPs, and I'm sorry, I should have sent all that out as well. But if you've seen that list of BMPs, all this information is already in there. What I've added is the second two columns. Oh, Bob, I think you're making it bigger on your end and it's making it bigger on my end too. That's okay. Okay. I'm trying to bring this up so it looks okay here.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's okay. I know we're figuring it out here. Not to worry. Let me just move this down here. So we've got this table. So the new columns are actions taken and the next steps. And again, it's that same table that I sent out if that's just easier. And you know what? I might just do this because if MIRO is a little too complicated. What I did in MIRO is I added like some sticky notes. So if you have comments, you can feel free to add them in MIRO. If not, again, that's all right. So with North Fork, we have 2 watershed plan BMPs and 2 new BMPs. And so we have BMP 30. I'm not gonna try and find the best way to do this. So I'm not gonna read all of them here, but basically they're all organized by priority level, by feasibility. This was put in here when the watershed plan was put together in the BMPs. So I wanna kind of go over the actions taken. So these concept designs, remember that 2019 concept design, that happened on a few of our sites, and it might make more sense for me to bring this up actually. I'll work in this a little bit too here. So the concept design sites are the properties in this map that are outlined in orange. And these are the people that we especially want to get to the table at that April 13th workshop to talk about what those concept designs said. And the main options again are pursue mitigation or riparian habitat. We also have the Centerfield Elementary School, and that could be a cool project to do like a wetland site. There's room there. And then we also have the Lakewood Valley wastewater treatment plant we added because OC had asked us at the time to help with that. There's a bank that's eroding along the lagoon, and if that lagoon breaks, that would definitely be an issue for water quality. And I think Erin is on today. Yeah, hey Erin, thanks for joining. So I know Erin had emailed me a little bit earlier saying there might be some news on that site, and so there could be some collaboration there as well.
Yeah, so I didn't know if you wanted me to speak to that. I can wait if you want.
No, why don't you go ahead while we're talking about it?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Erin Wagner. I'm with Louisville MSD, and as you all probably know, MSD manages wastewater, stormwater, and flood protection in Jefferson County. We also manage wastewater at our regional facilities in Oldham County and other counties. MSD has, over the past year or so, been evaluating the new facilities in Oldham County. And so the bank, the underminement of the bank along the creek, is a priority for us. So we have been procuring work to stabilize that stream bank with a Ready Rock, a modular rock product, to stabilize the bank and to protect the lagoon from eroding.
Great, and we can talk more about that offline, but thanks, Erin. So pointing out that it's not just kind of what we're doing in our little Currys Fork bubble, but also trying to connect with what you all are doing and other stakeholders are doing. So if there's things that you're working on that aren't captured in this, let us know. So moving on from the concept design sites, I've also have on this map completed work. So you can see we have that 2012 mitigation project. Bob had talked about that, as well as the 2019 mitigation project with the Oldham Reserve that Bob had showed too. And those 3 2017 stream bank projects that were funded by 319. So Bob did a really good job kind of covering all those projects that have been done in Currys Fork there. The live stakes, so we're really pushing live stakes. That's a really wonderful program. The little tree looking things here, those are where live stakes have been planted so far, and we're going to have a bunch more this year. So anyone in Currys Fork is able to get some live stakes, and we'll work with them to get them planted along their stream. And then these like yellow call out boxes, these are for showing sites for that detention basin demonstration project grant application we submitted. So focusing on the upper tributaries of Crystal Lake. Crystal Lake is filling in with quite a bit of sediment. There's a lot of development happening. So we think we might have a landowner interested in using their property to use as a site for storage. And again, this is all adding in that critical discharge assessment as a big part of this too. Oldham Reserve, Bob had showed that master plan for the Oldham Reserve. So if they're interested in getting some help to develop a basin, we'd like to pursue that. They already have basins put on their master plan. It just depends if the timing lines up with something that they want to do. The I-71 median. So if you've been in Oldham County anytime recently, there's expansion of I-71 that's going to hit Currys Fork. It already has a little bit, but it's going to go deeper, more north into Currys Fork. So now is a good time to implement that BMP that says, let's do a stream assessment in that median and connect with KYTC and see if there's anything that we can do to support some storage and reduce the amount of flooding that's getting down to this Briar Ridge area here, this Briar Ridge Road site, which is where the county bought out that FEMA property, because this whole stretch of stream is just in really rough shape. And that's why it's a focus both in the conceptual designs that were done and in the this current grant here. So properties are flooding, people are building walls, and it's not looking good. And I think that kind of covers, I know I went through this quickly, and I know this was a little bit clunky, but looking at these different tables here, I'll just say again, so they're outlined based on the sub-watershed. We've got the actions taken and kind of our next step, again, fanning out into the different categories of stream restoration, habitat assessment, and detention basins. And I don't think it's a valuable use of your time for me to kind of talk about each of these individually. I think I've probably given enough detail for you all at the moment. So I'm going to stop here and see if anybody has any questions or anything that you'd like me to talk about further. And you can feel free to unmute yourself, or if it's easier for you, you can put that in the chat.
Hey, Becca, this is Bob. Awesome job connecting everything. Sorry if I cut you short on time. I noted that I saw that Perry noted in the comments about any stream work would basically also need a Kentucky Division of Water permit, and that's absolutely true. And it's best to check with Division of Water before doing any work in a stream. Sorry for that oversight. I just sort of in the stream world, you sort of know all these other things that are implied when you say Army Corps permit. You also have to get a state water quality permit and things like that. But it's important to explicitly note that one.
Hey, no problem, Bob. This is just fresh in my mind because in Henry County this week, there was a proposal before the Board of Adjustments that included some construction along a stream. And I was asked this question of what's required, so I had to investigate it. So it's fresh on my mind.
Yeah, and we could really have this conversation for another several hours. So no worries on time. That's on me, but I'm just trying to make sure I've given you all the information and give you a little bit of homework to look at this. And as stakeholders, I guess, just help us make sure we're on the right track and this all makes sense, and then reach out to talk about it and let us know if you have any questions or any thoughts. I know I've repeated myself a lot. Hopefully that means you understand what's going on. Let me go back. So I'm going to move on from that and just finish up here. I know we're a little over time, so let me, I didn't talk about our upcoming events. I don't think I talked about this yet. So I did talk about this. So we have a lot of upcoming events. I'll send this out later again. What I did want to share though was that everything is on Facebook. So if you're a Facebook user, please go to our page. It's just me. So that's the easiest way to just know what's going on. I put everything on Facebook, and then we have our local watershed Facebook groups. That's a great way to connect and have conversations. And announcement that our next stakeholder meeting is July 29th at UDEL. I know Paul said he had to head out, but thank you to Paul for giving us a little bit of time, especially in your busy season, to meet over there. We're going to have a really nice in-person meeting. So plan for the day, especially if you're driving. But we'll meet at UDEL. We'll have some conversations, a little bit of programming, and it'll kind of just be a nice time to connect with everybody. And then Paul's going to take us on a tour of UDEL. So we'll be able to see the rain garden we planted. They've got a solar roof. They've got this, they've got a pollinator meadow, and they've got a bunch of other really cool things going on. So it'll be a really nice day. So just get that in your calendars now before you plan out your summer. And with that, I'm happy to stay on, but I want to get you off to the rest of your days like I had told you I would. So thank you. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Beck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
all.